What's the word, everybody? Let's talk about the main event last night at UFC 269 with yours truly, Ryan the Mighty Quinn, this edition of the Monday Morning Cornerman. Alright, so Dustin versus Charles. I had a really good feeling about Dustin going into this fight. I saw him a couple weeks ago. I just thought he physically looked good, he mentally looked good, just the conversation was light, and he just was really in a good place. Even walking to the cage, you know, he was just happy to be there. He wasn't like, sometimes myself included as fighters, we're putting too much pressure on ourselves going into these big fights. He just looked real loose and just like things were gonna come his way, and they did. But he fought one of the most dangerous fighters ever in the UFC, and the numbers don't lie with that. I think he has the most finishes, Charles Oliveira. Tough fight, and Charles Sonnen said it best that, you know, Dustin was going to win one way, and that's by choice too. Charles had a lot of ways to win. Why I like this matchup, I just know from training with Dustin personally that Dustin has really good jiu-jitsu defense. Really good jiu-jitsu defense. Particularly with triangles, we always joke that, you know, he's got no neck, especially when he got a little bigger when he started fighting at 155. And I thought that was going to be a big X factor that people weren't going to realize in this fight. Charles, I was saying, he's really slick. His ground game actually starts on the fence. Only him and Damian Maia in the modern era really are able to do that. It made for a lot of interesting scrambles, which ultimately ended to the end of the fight. Back to Dustin's size. Dustin looked really strong in that fight. At one point, he even bench pressed Charles out of a clinch attempt. It wasn't even Monday and this dude's bench press. It's crazy. One thing I was real surprised with Charles was how fast he came forward. He didn't just take the center, he went right in Dustin's face. Nobody does that. Nobody gets in Dustin Poirier's face. And he had some answers for his troubles when he did that as well. Dustin clearly won the first round, dropped him, stunned him, and to Charles's credit, he kept coming forward. He wanted to get inside and tangle him up. And Charles is someone who stands his ground and controls the center. He doesn't usually press like that either, so that was really impressive. I think it led to some early adjustments needed for Team Poirier. Adjustments like that I would have seen later on, like 4th and 5th round. They were forced to do it in the first, and the announcers even said, I can't see this keeping up for 5 rounds. I think that might have been part of the game plan for adjustments to be made. You know, make your opponent make adjustments. It happens. Second round, there was a lot of confusion there. I agree with exactly what Dean Thomas said and kind of what they were alluding to in the corner. I believe that Dustin was on the bottom and he was going to chew the round. That's a lot of things that people don't realize in these 5-round fights. We talked about it before, and Dean's actually someone who explains this to me. There's times where you throw away things, and you can throw away a whole round in a 5-round fight. Particularly, that second round is probably the best one to throw away if you win round 1, because you know you can make up for it later. And that's exactly what Dustin did. He was holding on there, and Charles didn't give him anything. Charles was still in his face. He was still landing shots, landing elbows. I didn't think the elbows were as bad as the announcer said it was, but Charles was scoring and doing damage. Those were heavy. Those were really heavy, and that's not easy to do for anybody. And I have short arms, and that's what I want to do in there. I want to land those elbows, and Charles had these long arms winding up, bam. It was nice to watch. It was pretty crazy. Another thing, I didn't feel that was that bad. I thought that Dustin did a great job, and I credit Diane Davis, his boxing coach, for this. He was in his stance over his southpaw, and when those knees were coming, he was catching them. He was catching them. He was catching them. Catching them and answer. Catching them and answer. What does catching mean? Catching means kind of, you know, blocking, defending. I thought he did a good job with that. I didn't think he was taking as much damage there as everyone felt he was. He was just answering. After the Daniel Hooker fight is best, where it shows where Dustin really can just scrap. You know, he's always in these long, drawn-out wars, but I think that fight right there showed us the most that he can handle this kind of fight. Charles, let's go to Charles. So Charles, you know, he uses the MMA game well for his wrestling or to set up his groundwork. Like I said previously, his groundwork starts against the fence, and you saw that. He's got so many standing rear naked chokes. And as soon as, you know, Dustin did a great job defending that first time. popping up and escaping, trying to get that wrist control. But as soon as Charles, he made the adjustments. He's world champ for a reason. As soon as he felt Dustin hand down, he started putting the hooks in and everything like that. Dustin did a great job fighting, but ultimately the rear naked choke was there. Really tough, really, hurting for my boy, but he's gonna be back. I can't put my finger on it, but Dustin is going to get that world belt, that world title. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's just how I feel. I know this man. I know how he trains, and he deserves it. And he's a great family man. We were talking about my wife last night, and that aside, he puts the work in, and he knows where to make the adjustments, whether it's with any style or discipline, or with his strength and conditioning routine. He knows how to make the adjustments, and he's coachable. He allows those adjustments to be made by his staff, and I'm looking forward to his next steps. I guess this going forward for Charles, not much he needs to change. I guess he's fighting Justin Gaethje next. We'll see how that goes. But next weekend's gonna be a fun fight. Nobody hates Derek Lewis, so we're gonna get into that one. And have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.